Jay-Z is setting Diddy up.
Jay's definitely.
Jay helped you?
Yeah.
How did you
As a
help him?
competitor.
Explain it.
Yeah, because he never was someone that you communicate with that you're like friends with the person. But I always respected him because he
Nobody expected 50 Cent to clear his throat and send the internet into a full-blown panic. But that's exactly what happened. One cryptic warning, one perfectly timed post, and suddenly Jay-Z and Beyoncé's names were trending next to words like exposure, receipts, and industry secrets. This wasn't a diss track. This wasn't a joke. This felt like a door cracking open that was never supposed to move, because when 50 speaks, people don't assume coincidence. They assume calculation. This is the same man who treats silence like a weapon and chaos like a chessboard. So when he hinted that something big was coming, timelines froze, group chats lit up, and industry insiders suddenly found religion. The tone wasn't loud, but it was sharp. The kind of warning that sounds casual until you realize it wasn't meant for you. Fans panicked. Critics speculated. Blogs scrambled. And the wildest part was how fast everyone agreed on one thing without saying it out loud. If 50 is talking, he thinks he has leverage. This wasn't just about Jay-Z and Beyonce as celebrities. This was about power, legacy, and the kind of secrets people whisper about but never expect to see daylight. The energy felt less like gossip and more like a countdown. The warning didn't come with sirens or flashing lights. That's what made it terrifying. One post, a few carefully chosen words, and suddenly the internet was acting like someone pulled a fire alarm inside hip-hop's most guarded mansion. When 50 Cent hinted that Jay-Z and Beyonce might be facing exposure, people didn't ask if it was serious. They asked what he knew and why now. Because history has taught everyone the same lesson. 50 doesn't bark unless he thinks he's holding the leash. This wasn't random chaos. It felt calculated, like a chess move made 3 turns ahead. And that's why the reaction was instant. Timelines froze. Group chats exploded. Blogs refreshed like they were waiting for a drop at midnight. Because when you've watched 50 Cent operate for decades, you know he doesn't bluff for entertainment. He waits, he watches, and then he speaks when he believes silence will hurt more than noise. To understand why this warning landed like a nuclear tremor, you have to understand the history between 50 and Jay-Z. This isn't fresh beef. This is an old rivalry that never fully died, just learned how to wear suits instead of streetwear. 2 titans from the same era, moving through the industry with very different strategies, both obsessed with control but allergic to losing it. They've clashed publicly, shaded subtly, and pretended to coexist when it benefited them. But the tension has always been there, humming under the surface like exposed wiring. Jay-Z represents polish, legacy, boardrooms, and billion-dollar optics. Beyonce represents perfection, curation, and a brand so airtight it feels untouchable. Together, they're not just celebrities. They're an institution. And institutions don't like unpredictability. That's why 50's warning felt less like gossip and more like a threat to stability. You don't casually suggest exposure around people whose entire empire is built on controlled narratives. What made it worse was the timing. The industry is already shaky. Lawsuits, documentaries, quiet investigations, and old alliances unraveling behind the scenes have created an atmosphere where nobody feels fully safe. So when 50 spoke, people didn't hear just his voice. They heard echoes of other scandals that started small and ended massive. Suddenly, everyone was wondering if this warning was connected to something already unfolding off camera. The internet did what it always does in moments like this. It started connecting dots that might not even exist yet. Old interviews resurfaced. Lyrics were reinterpreted like coded messages. Past photos, business moves, and relationships were dragged back into daylight and examined with brand new suspicion. People weren't asking what did they do. They were asking what haven't we been told. Blogs jumped into survival mode. Nobody wanted to miss the first wave if something actually dropped. Headlines carefully danced around words like alleged and hinted, while still squeezing every ounce of drama out of the situation. Comment sections turned into conspiracy conventions. Some claimed this was retaliation. Others swore it was about money. A few whispered about industry secrets nobody ever wanted public. The truth didn't matter yet. Anticipation did. Fans of Jay-Z and Beyoncé rushed to defense, calling the warning clout-seeking, attention-grabbing, and desperate. They argued that 50 has always thrived on controversy and that this was just another attempt to insert himself into relevance. Critics fired back, reminding everyone that 50 doesn't need relevance. He manufactures moments for sport. And the scariest part was that nobody could confidently say he was wrong. 50's reputation added weight to the warning. This is a man who has exposed enemies before, mocked situations into submission, and survived industry wars that ended other careers. He doesn't move like someone afraid of consequences. He moves like someone who enjoys them. So when he hinted that something was coming, people assumed he believed he had receipts, leverage, or at least enough smoke to force reactions. The silence from Jay-Z and Beyoncé's camp only made things worse. No denial, no clarification, no dismissive laugh, just quiet. And quiet in situations like this doesn't feel calm. It feels strategic. The kind of quiet where lawyers are consulted and phones are ringing off the hook. The kind of quiet that makes the internet even louder. Industry insiders allegedly started whispering too. Not publicly, not recklessly, but enough to suggest this warning wasn't being ignored behind closed doors. When someone like 50 speaks, people listen, even if they pretend not to. Especially if they pretend not to. What made the moment so unsettling was how vague it was. No names dropped directly. No accusations spelled out. Just implication. And implication is dangerous because it lets the audience do the damage for you. People fill in blanks with their own fears, biases, and imaginations. The story grows faster than facts ever could. Memes started creeping in. Because humor is how people process anxiety online. Jokes about billionaires sweating, captions about industry panic mode activated, sarcastic posts comparing the situation to a slow-motion car crash everyone sees coming but can't stop watching. But underneath the jokes was unease. Because everyone knows jokes dry up fast when real information surfaces. By the end of this phase, the warning had already achieved something powerful. It shifted the narrative. It reminded the industry that no empire is too big to be questioned and no legacy to polish to be rattled. Whether anything ever drops or not, the damage of suggestion was already done. This wasn't exposure yet. This was positioning. This was the opening move. The kind that forces people to look over their shoulders and check locks they thought were permanent. And if this was just the beginning, then the next phase wouldn't be about hints anymore. It would be about reactions, denials, alliances, and the internet turning speculation into spectacle at record speed. Once the warning settled into the timeline, the internet didn't just react. It reorganized itself around the possibility of fallout. The mood shifted from curiosity to contingency planning, like everyone suddenly realized this wasn't a joke tweet meant to disappear in 24 hours. This felt like a pressure test. And the moment pressure gets applied, cracks start getting imagined, exaggerated, and hunted down like sport. Celebrity reactions came first, and none of them were direct, because directness is dangerous when billion-dollar brands are involved. Instead, people posted vague affirmations about truth, timing, and things coming to light, the digital equivalent of whispering loudly. Fans treated these posts like coded messages, screenshotting, circling emojis, and connecting unrelated dots with the confidence of seasoned investigators. One person's inspirational quote became another person's confirmation bias. Reaction channels went into overtime. Thumbnails screamed countdown energy. Commentators spoke in hushed tones, promising context while delivering speculation wrapped in dramatic pauses. Everyone had a theory, and none of them agreed. Some claimed this was about old business dealings resurfacing. Others insisted it was retaliation over power plays behind closed doors. A few went full cinematic, suggesting this was the opening scene of a larger industry reckoning. Facts took a back seat. Momentum grabbed the wheel. Memes exploded like fireworks at midnight. Billionaire panic jokes. Chessboard graphics with 50-cent moving pieces labeled leverage and receipts. Clips comparing the situation to reality show cliffhangers where the screen cuts to black right before the truth drops. Humor did what humor always does online. It made the tension bearable while amplifying it at the same time. Theories multiplied faster than corrections could keep up. People pulled old interviews and reinterpreted throwaway lines like they were prophecy. Lyrics were treated like depositions. Business moves from years ago suddenly felt suspicious under this new lens. The audience wasn't asking whether any of this was accurate. They were asking which theory felt most exciting to believe. What really turned the heat up was how carefully everyone avoided specifics. That vagueness acted like gasoline. When no details are given, people assume the details must be devastating. And when the people being referenced don't respond immediately, the silence becomes a character in the story. Jay-Z and Beyoncé's quiet wasn't read as confidence. It was read as calculation. Every hour without a response felt louder than a denial ever could. Industry chatter allegedly intensified behind the scenes. Not public statements, just quiet recalibration. When a warning like this lands, nobody wants to be caught standing in the wrong photo if something breaks. Phone calls get made. Meetings get rescheduled. The machine doesn't panic publicly, but it tightens bolts internally. Even rumors can alter trajectories when enough money is on the line. Fans split into predictable camps. One side dismissed the whole thing as cloud theater, insisting this was just another attempt to poke an untouchable brand. The other side argued that no one pokes this hard without confidence. Both sides agreed on one thing, even if they wouldn't say it out loud. This didn't feel random. It felt intentional. Pop culture comparisons went nuclear. People said this had the same energy as a season finale where everyone knows the reveal is coming but nobody knows when. Others compared it to corporate espionage thrillers where the threat is more unsettling than the act itself. Sarcasm flew heavy, but beneath it was genuine unease. Because unlike fictional drama, real-world consequences don't come with credits rolling. As the story ballooned, the media ecosystem fed on it. Headlines hedged but leaned dramatic. Hints, warnings, and meltdowns did the heavy lifting. Each outlet added a layer of urgency, not because new information arrived, but because attention demanded it. Calm updates vanished. Speculation soared. 50 Cent's role in all of this grew larger with every hour. Supporters framed him as the ultimate disruptor, the guy unafraid to rattle ivory towers. Critics accused him of instigating panic for sport. But even critics admitted something uncomfortable. He knows how to apply pressure without exposing his hand. That's why the warning felt effective. It forced reactions without requiring receipts upfront. The internet also began watching for secondary signals. Who unfollowed who? Who liked which post? Who stayed silent while others spoke? Every micro movement became a clue. That's how viral paranoia works. It turns ordinary behavior into evidence and coincidence into conspiracy. What made this phase especially volatile was the expectation of escalation. Everyone assumed something else was coming. A post, a clip, a document. The anticipation itself became content. People refreshed feeds not for news, but for confirmation that the waiting wasn't pointless. Meanwhile, defenders of Jay-Z and Beyoncé grew louder, pushing narratives of legacy, philanthropy, and cultural impact as shields against implication. Critics countered by saying power doesn't equal immunity. The debate wasn't about guilt. It was about whether influence should exempt anyone from scrutiny. That philosophical fight kept the story alive even without new information. By the end of this stage, the warning had achieved maximum reach. It lived in memes, headlines, reaction videos, and private conversations. It didn't matter that nothing concrete had dropped. The implication alone had already shifted the atmosphere. The industry felt tense. The audience felt energized. And the story felt unfinished in a way that begged for resolution. Because once speculation reaches the scale, it doesn't evaporate. It demands an ending. Even if the ending never fully arrives, everyone knew the next phase wouldn't be louder by default. It would be heavier, quieter, more consequential. Because when panic cools, consequences start asking for attention. When the noise finally dipped below a roar, the industry didn't relax. It recalibrated. That's the difference between internet panic and real-world consequence. Panic screams. Consequence whispers and starts moving pieces quietly. The warning didn't need to be repeated. It had already lodged itself into boardrooms, legal inboxes, and private conversations that never make it to the timeline, Jay-Z and Beyoncé's silence became the loudest element in the room. Not because silence implies guilt, but because silence in moments like this invites projection. Fans read it as confidence, critics read it as strategy, and everyone else read it as a sign that something was being handled off camera. The truth is, silence protects leverage. And when you're operating at that level, you don't argue in public when you can neutralize privately. What shifted most was perception. Not facts, not proof, but vibe. The idea of untouchability took a hairline crack, and that's all the internet ever needs. People didn't suddenly believe something specific happened. They started believing something could. And possibility is a powerful accelerant. It turns admiration into suspicion and curiosity into obsession. Industry relationships subtly tightened. Appearances stayed scheduled. Partnerships stayed intact. But the energy changed. Conversations grew cautious. Jokes stopped landing the same way. When speculation gets this loud, even proximity becomes something to manage. Nobody wants to be misinterpreted by association when narratives are unstable. 50 Cent, meanwhile, didn't retreat. He didn't double down either. He hovered, and hovering is intentional. Supporters framed it as masterful restraint, the kind that lets pressure do the talking. Critics called it reckless provocation without accountability. Both sides missed the point. This wasn't about explanation. It was about control. The warning already did its job. Anything more would have been unnecessary noise. The internet, predictably, grew impatient. When no bombshell arrived, some users accused the moment of being overhyped. Others insisted the lack of follow-up meant something was stopped before it could surface. That's the paradox of implication. If nothing happened, people assume something almost did. And almost is enough to keep a story alive indefinitely. Legacy debates reignited in quieter tones. Jay-Z's career was re-examined through a new lens, not because of new information, but because the context changed. Beyoncé's perfection was discussed with a hint of skepticism that hadn't been mainstream before. Not hostility, just curiosity with an edge. That's the long tail of moments like this. They don't topple empires. They introduce doubt into places that used to feel settled. 50's reputation as a disruptor solidified further. Love him or hate him, people acknowledged his ability to shift narratives without firing a shot. He reminded the industry that power doesn't only come from wealth or silence. Sometimes it comes from knowing when to speak just enough. The audience eventually moved on, as it always does, distracted by the next trending scandal. But this moment didn't disappear. It calcified. It became reference material. Someone will bring it up months from now with, "Remember when 50 warned them?" And the cycle will restart with new users and the same uncertainty. That's how modern mythology works. What lingered most was the lesson nobody wants to admit. In an era obsessed with exposure, the threat of exposure can be more destabilizing than exposure itself. It forces defensive positioning, reshapes perception, and creates ripple effects without ever needing confirmation. And no careers ended. No statements exploded. No documents leaked publicly. And yet, the industry felt slightly less comfortable than it did before the warning dropped. That discomfort is the real impact. It reminds everyone that narratives are fragile and that even the most curated images can be rattled by suggestion alone. In the end, this wasn't about proving anything. It was about reminding everyone that power dynamics in entertainment are never static. They shift with timing, voice, and the courage to apply pressure when others assume safety. The warning didn't close a chapter. It opened a margin note in a story people thought was already written. And margin notes are dangerous because they invite readers to question the text itself. If you're still here, don't lie to yourself. That warning hit harder than half the expos, as the internet swears are coming every year. So go ahead and smash that like button like it just dropped a cryptic post and left everyone guessing. Because clearly ambiguity is the most powerful weapon in entertainment right now. Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't play neutral. Was 50 Cent just stirring the pot like only he can? Or did that warning sound like someone who knows exactly where the skeletons are buried? Do you think this was chess, checkers, or just psychological warfare at billionaire level? Say it out loud. because the comment section is where speculation turns into full-blown investigations. And if this is your first time here, understand this now. Stories like this don't fade. They wait. They resurface when the timing is right, when another hint drops, or when someone finally says too much. So hit subscribe, because when the next harmless warning turns into a full industry panic, you're going to want the breakdown before the narrative gets rewritten. Turn on notifications too, because scandals don't come with release dates. They pop up casually, get dismissed too quickly, and then explode when nobody's ready. And when that happens, we'll be right here pulling apart the clues, the silence, and the power moves everyone pretends not to notice. Remember, in this game, exposure doesn't always need proof. Sometimes all it needs is timing, reputation, and the right person saying just enough. This is Truth Tattle, where the warnings matter, the silence speaks, and the stories never end when the post disappears.